Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. Welcome to episode 35 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing well. I hope everyone out there had a good Thanksgiving. Um, I know I did. We had uh, my sister and my wife made turkey sliders, which were delicious. Um, but I hope everyone out there is doing well. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I will say, before I get started here, if you can't already tell, I am feeling a tad under the weather. I kind of, I, I took some Dayquil and throat lozenges before I got started today. But I wanted to do a show because it's been a few days, and I try to keep up with entertainment news as best I can to inform all of you. Um, so anyway, so I hope everyone's doing. Excuse me. Okay. I hope everyone's doing well. I do apologize in advance if I do any uh, extreme coughing or sneezing. But uh, but yeah. So episode 35. Wow. You know, who'd have thought it? Um, but yeah, so I hope this show provides some entertainment for you. I hope this show provides a brief respite from whatever it is that you're going through in life. Or I know it's crazy out there right now. Um, especially now with the holidays and everything. So I just hope you all enjoy the show. Before I get started, I just want to remind everybody that if you like this show, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and spread the word. Tell your friends. Also, if you have a comment or question, or if you'd like me to um, talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. Sorry, I'm just getting everything set up. So, with all that out of the way, let's get started with this today, shall we? So, I've mentioned in previous episodes recently that there's a filmmaker, a director by the name of Jeremy Saulnier, who is one of my favorite filmmakers right now. He's done films like Blue Ruin and Green Room, which I don't I it's not that I keep going on about Green Room, and it's not that I don't love Blue Ruin, but for whatever reason, Green Room just stuck with me. And I love Blue Ruin, but maybe it's Patrick Stewart's performance in that movie. But Green Room is great, and Jeremy Saulnier is one of my favorite filmmakers right now, and he has this new movie coming called October, which is it's this kind of genre picture. By genre, it's when people say this is a genre movie, that usually means science fiction, fantasy, or horror. One of those. And this just happens to be a horror movie. This it's kind of a horror thriller. Um, 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 from Jeremy Saulnier, and it's called October, and I think I've talked about it before. It's this horror thriller it's this fugitive thriller that's set during Halloween. So anyway, so there's been some more casting news regarding this movie. This article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar. Stanley Simons, who was in the movie The Iron Claw about the professional wrestler, has closed the deal to star alongside Corey Michael Smith, Chase Sui Wonders, and Sophie Wilde in October. Writer-director Jeremy Saulnier's mysterious genre picture for A24 Studios. The project brings Simons back to the studio following his turn opposite Zac Efron, Harris Dickinson, and Jeremy Allen White in its lauded wrestling drama The Iron Claw from writer-director Sean Durkin. Character details are under wraps. The plot is as well, though sources have described the project as a fugitive thriller set during Halloween. Saulnier is directing from his own script with A24 Studios producing and financing. Okay, so there's not really much to go on because obviously character details, it says, are kept under wraps. I will say that what I can say is the Iron Claw is awesome. It's so good. If you're not familiar, I would say the Iron Claw is, for those who don't know, the movie The Iron Claw is about the legendary wrestling family, the Von Erichs. And the movie, it's one of those movies that, for anybody who's familiar with the world of professional wrestling, um, you know how that movie ends. And it even before, like, once you, even though you see the trailer, you're just like, yeah, this movie isn't going to end well. And the Iron Claw refers to the wrestling maneuver that the Von Erich family uses or used, and it's a very tragic story, and Zac Efron's in it, and it's phenomenal. It really is, and it is one of those movies that even if you're not familiar with the world of professional wrestling, you should watch it because it's a great family drama, and it it just watch it. But I know that Stanley Simons was in that, so there's not much to go on here other than, obviously, again, when it comes to these kinds of casting announcements, character details being kept under wraps, he's probably playing somebody important, right? Um, so, more casting news means that they're going to start filming soon. Jeremy Saulnier is one of my favorite filmmakers, so I have no doubt that it will be uh, certainly on par with his previous films. I am really excited to see what Jeremy Saulnier does with this genre. Um, and Stanley Simons is someone who's he's a rising star in the industry, and hopefully this film will elevate him, and continue to get him more work. So I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to this. So I know there's not much to go on here, but I just wanted to talk about it for a minute. If you've seen the Iron Claw, what did you think of it? Stanley Simons is going to be in this fugitive thriller, October. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this. Okay, so next bit of news. So I've talked about recently that filmmaker Zach Cregger, who directed Barbarian, and he directed this year he directed a movie called Weapons which starred Josh Brolin, which is awesome. It's so awesome, and there's dark humor in it as well, but it's one of these horror movies. It's a supernatural horror movie, but it's grounded in its own reality, and it's so awesome, and it's fucking brilliant. if you haven't seen Weapons, watch Weapons. So anyway, so Zach Cregger, who directed Weapons, is, and I've mentioned this in a few previous episodes. He is going to be directing a new movie, a new Resident Evil movie, and there's, with every bit of news, what's the phrase I'm trying to look for here? Anticipation is growing with every bit of news that comes out, and especially what I'm about to read. So this article is on Joe Blow, um, published by Steve Saig, and a little ways down here, this article says, according to Deadline, Paul Walter Hauser, who was in the new Naked Gun movie, he was in the Cobra Kai series, and he was also in the Fantastic Four: First Steps. I think he played Mole Man. So Paul Walter Hauser will join Austin Abrams for Cregger's next horror film. So Paul Walter Hauser, it goes on here. Zach Cregger makes a statement regarding the movie, but Paul Walter Hauser is going to be in the new Resident Evil movie. Paul Walter Hauser was in what was the? It's gonna bug me. Paul Walter Hauser. Was in that's the one. This movie directed by Clint Eastwood called Richard Jewell, and it is about the. It's kind of a biopic, but it's a movie about what. It's a movie about what happened at the Summer Olympics in Atlanta in 1996. And Paul Walter Hauser plays Richard Jewell. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's very good, and I believe Kathy Bates was also in it, and I think she actually got an Oscar nomination. And it's I haven't seen the film, but everything that I've heard about it is just one of those things where, man, Clint Eastwood as a director still he's still got it, But anyway, Paul Walter Hauser. That's the first time I heard his name. That's my point. Is that I first heard his name when he was in this Richard Jewell movie. I've liked him ever since. So getting an actor like him, and what's interesting is that Paul Walter Hauser he's done some films as a leading man, and he's done it in a very minor capacity. Like he was in Fantastic Four: First Steps. It was 2 minutes, but it was wonderful. It was great to see him. So he can it seems like it seems like to him it doesn't matter how much screen time he has. He's just glad to be a part of it. You know what I mean? But it's great. Paul Walter Hauser being in a movie like this, it's I wonder what he's gonna bring. Is it going to be? Because I think Paul Walter Hauser is the kind of actor, like, he could play it. He could be a very serious character, or he could be kind of the dark comic relief, or I mean, he could do anything. But um, getting an actor like Paul Walter Hauser involved in a Resident Evil movie is very interesting to me. I don't know in what capacity he'll be in it, because obviously when you think of Resident Evil, you think of there are many different uh, characters, and Zach Cregger has said that this movie will not follow the storyline of any of the games. It'll be a Resident Evil movie, but it'll be its own story, which I love actually. So, but yeah, I think this is very interesting. I think this is wonderful news. And Paul Walter Hauser, I think he can do anything, and I'm very interested to see what kind of character he'll play, and how much screen time he'll have, because I mean he'll he'll uh, he'll own however many minutes he's on screen. I mean, let's be honest. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Paul Walter Hauser going to be in this new Resident Evil movie. So, this next bit of news is very interesting to me. Um, so, um, and it has to do with an upcoming Martin Scorsese film. So, and it's interesting to me because, and maybe it's a little more interesting to me because for me personally, I was very late to the Martin Scorsese party. Um, the first Martin Scorsese movie I saw was The Departed, and I fully admit that. Martin Scorsese to me, prior to watching The Departed, was I want to I'm trying to choose my words carefully. So I as I've as I've gotten older, and I as I continue to get older, I'm always learning about the history of film and numerous directors and what they've contributed to um, the art of cinema. Martin Scorsese was always a name that I had heard when I was younger, and it was one of those things, like how somebody, how sometimes a movie, like there's a movie that comes out that everybody talks about, and then it's like they're like, oh my god, this movie's awesome, and blah 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 blah, or like a new release or something, and then people just can't stop talking about it, and then you experience it, and you're just like, eh, you know. I'm not saying Martin Scorsese was like that for me. I'm saying that Martin Scorsese was a filmmaker who I had heard everybody talk about in nauseating, in talk about it at length, in um not nauseating, but like annoying. Like everybody, film junkies always talked about Martin Scorsese. And when I was younger, it was just like, oh my god, like shut up. Like like I almost got sick. And to be fair, that was when I was younger and didn't know shit. And um, so for me being late to the Martin Scorsese party was kind of on purpose, because everybody talked about how great of a filmmaker Martin Scorsese was, and I couldn't fucking stand it. So I purposefully avoided watching Martin Scorsese movies. And it turns out, and as I got older and learned more about the film history, about the history of film, and I'm always learning. I strive to learn as much as I can. But as I got older, I realized why everybody talks about Martin Scorsese. Um, and you know, I fully admit that. There's a reason why everybody knows his name. And Martin Scorsese is one of the greatest filmmakers, is one of the greatest film directors to ever live. Um, that's just the bottom line. I still have a problem. Here's my thing. There is a when every I still have a problem because when anybody ever mentions Martin Scorsese, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, but it seems to me that whenever somebody mentions Martin Scorsese, the automatic movie that they go to is Goodfellas. Like they just cannot shut up about Goodfellas. And look, I get it. Goodfellas is a masterful piece of work. It really is. But he's done other things. Like, what about fucking The Aviator? What about um, Gangs of New York? What about The Departed? What about not Passion? Last Temptation of Christ. You know, what about Who's That Knocking on My Door? What about Taxi Driver? You know, he's done other things, but it just seems people won't shut up about Goodfellas. So that part still annoys me. And I love Goodfellas. Goodfellas is great, but it's just like, he's done other films. Martin Scorsese, again, is one of the greatest filmmakers who ever lived. Has he done a couple of stinkers? Sure. But when you're Martin Scorsese, those stinkers stink far less than they would if they were made by any other filmmaker. By the way, speaking of Martin Scorsese, there's a movie that he did called After Hours. It is this delightful comedy that he did. I think he was, if I remember right, there were some creative or production issues with The Last Temptation of Christ. And he had trouble working those issues out or getting the project off the ground, or there were numerous issues. He was having issues with The Last Temptation of Christ prior to beginning filming it. So he briefly stepped away from that, and he made this movie called After Hours. After Hours is great. It's one of these movies that I think, again, in terms of the Martin Scorsese filmography, nobody talks about. I feel. If you haven't seen After Hours, go watch it. It's great. So, with my now that my rant now that my diatribe is over, now that I've said what I needed to say, there's news regarding his next film. Martin Scorsese will be, if you can believe it, Martin Scorsese will be directing his 44th feature film. and he's going to be reuniting with people that he's worked with before. And that's another thing that I love about Martin Scorsese is that he's a filmmaker that reunites with the same people a lot because he just loves working with them. And I think that more creative people should do that. You know, should do that more often. So this article is on CBR, published by Manuel Demigio. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Demigio. This article says Director Martin Scorsese is set to helm his 44th feature film, What Happens at Night. Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence will star in the upcoming adaptation of Peter Cameron's namesake ghost story. Um, let's see. Production for Scorsese's new movie is slated to start in January. Let's see. This article does go on to say DiCaprio and Lawrence will play the unnamed protagonists in Cameron's ghost story, which follows an American married couple who travel to a small European town to adopt a baby. Per the novel synopsis, it's a difficult journey that leaves the wife who is struggling with cancer desperately weak, and her husband worries that her illness will prevent the orphanage from releasing their child. And this is a modern day. This is going to be an adaptation of a modern day ghost story. Now, what's interesting about this is that Scorsese has delved into this genre before with a movie called Shutter Island, which is really, really good. It's really, really good. Shutter Island is really good, and it's one of those twists at the climax of the movie that you're just like, oh fuck, like, oh my god, like it's Shutter Island is really, really good. So this sounds really interesting to me. Um, this sounds like it could be a very. I mean, and it sounds. It always sounds weird when I say this, but like this seems to me that it could be a character-based horror movie. Not that horror movies can't be character pieces, but it seems to be that it is going to be um, less about the scares and more about the horror that happens to these characters, if that makes any sense. And horror is one of those genres that it can do anything. I mean, you can have movies like The Conjuring where it's both. You can have character based horror and supernatural scares and you know exorcisms and all that. But this sounds more. This sounds like a very grounded kind of horror movie, which sounds really interesting. You know what? It kind of reminds me just by um, the novel synopsis. It's a difficult journey that leaves the wife who is struggling with cancer desperately weak, and her husband worries that her illness will prevent the orphanage from releasing their child. This sounds like a very personal, uh, the um, the interpersonal relationships. This sounds like a very interpersonal horror movie, um, and it's giving me. It reminds me of um, the original The Omen with Gregory Peck and Lee Remick. Um, you know, The Omen is one of the is a classic, and it's scary, but there's great character stuff in it too. You know, and so this kind of reminds me of of The Omen in that way. And again, it sounds weird when I'm describing, you know, this movie as a character based horror movie because all good movies are character based, right? But I think horror is a genre that can, again, it can do anything. You can have character based stuff. You can have scare based stuff. You can have gore based stuff. You know, it's all about how you do it. And you know, again, Martin Scorsese is one of those filmmakers that you know it's going to be all of the above, and it's going to be great. And you know, speaking of, you know, let me just talk about the cast here: Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. I love Leonardo DiCaprio. Um, you know, there's a movie that he was in that I don't feel gets enough talk. Is a movie called, excuse me, The Quick and the Dead, which is kind of this. I mean, it's not a very it's entertaining, but it's kind of uh, it's like this it's this western that um, the story is based on a quick draw contest. It's based around this quick draw contest, and Leonardo DiCaprio's in it, and he's great. But Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the best, has been one of the best actors um, working in the industry for a very long time, and he's always great to watch. Um, you with Jennifer Lawrence, I love Jennifer Lawrence. For whatever reason, I have found that some people just don't like her, and I don't know why. Like Jennifer Lawrence, the thing I see most, and this is why I stay off social media as much as I can. I find that people say like, "Oh, I'm so tired of seeing Jennifer Lawrence and everything," and I'm like, "I'm sorry. Like you're tired of seeing talented people showcase their talent? Like I don't understand that logic. You know, like okay, let's. How talented are you? You know, shut the fuck up." Um, Jennifer Lawrence is an Oscar-winning actress. Shut your mouth. Um, I love Jennifer Lawrence. I what was the what was um, uh, the movie that she recently did? Um, No Hard Feelings. Well, no, it was a couple years ago. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. She was great. She was great. Um, but you know, and obviously, you know, the Hunger Games and doing the X-Men movies, and she did this movie called Red Sparrow, which is, oh my god, that 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 was intense. That one was intense. Um, I love Jennifer Lawrence. I don't care what anybody says, but so, and it's great to see that Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence are working together. Uh, you know, those creative relationships. You know, collaborating again. Um, that's just great to see, and I can't wait. You know, this sounds very interesting to me, and I'm sure. I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want what was Killers of the Flower Moon, which uh, you know, and I understand the circumstances in the world that were going on when that movie was released. with the pandemic and everything, and I want this movie to play in theaters, and I know. Look, there is a I feel there's a legitimate problem. I feel it's legitimate, at least, that I have with Martin Scorsese and how he makes films. Sometimes I feel that the money that he asks for, especially recently, the money that he asks for to make a movie is ridiculous. I'm not talking about the quality of the movie. I'm talking about when he goes to a financier, or he goes to a studio and said, this movie is I need this movie is going to cost this much money, and I need this much money to make it. And the and that's why I think, didn't Netflix do Killers of the Flower Moon? Um, um, no, Apple TV did. And then no, The Irishman was Netflix. The Irishman's great. The Irishman's great. But Killers of the Flower Moon was made for Apple, Apple TV Plus. And I'll tell you why it was made by Apple TV Plus. And that's because no other studio in their right mind would give Martin Scorsese $200 million to make a period drama film. Like, I'm sorry. You may be one of the greatest filmmakers who ever lived, but you're not getting $200 million. But because it's Apple, or like with The Irishman, because it's Netflix, and they're sitting, and Apple and Netflix are sitting on Scrooge McDuck size piles of cash, sure, we'll give you that money so you can make your movie. Because no other film studio will. And I'm not saying the studios are wrong for not giving him that kind of money. I'm saying, what about a period drama film needs to cost $200 million? That's all I'm saying. I think, and I say this respectfully, and I apologize. I know I'm going off on the rails here. I think, again, and I don't mean to harp on it. Martin Scorsese is one of the greatest filmmakers ever. But I also think he is, in some ways, stuck in the era of a certain kind of filmmaking. Certain kind of There's a certain kind of way of making movies. There's a certain era of filmmaking that his mind is stuck in. And he refuses to adapt to the current film landscape. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just an audience member. I'm just an amateur filmmaker, or wannabe amateur filmmaker at times. Um, but it's you can't you have to adapt to the times. Adapt or die. Um, so that's my problem with Martin Scorsese and the way he makes films. I hope now. All that being said, I hope this plays in theaters. I don't want to see it on fucking Apple TV Plus or Netflix. And by the way, The Irishman's great. I think you could argue maybe argue that it's a little long, but it's great. I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon. My point in my rant is that I hope this plays in theaters. I don't want to see it on streaming. I want to see a Martin Scorsese movie in the theater because that's where it belongs. That's where it belongs. So anyway, sorry for my diatribe, rant, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking forward to Martin Scorsese doing this genre again. He did it before with Shutter Island. Um, you know, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's good and hopefully it plays in theaters. Okay, rant over. Let's move on to some TV news, shall we, or streaming news, whatever you want to call it. So, one of my favorite um, Marvel streaming series was Daredevil, the Netflix series with Charlie Cox, and I was late to that party. That was to me that was not it wasn't part of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There were like what's the like the Punisher and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Like I just didn't watch them because they weren't part of, and call me a snob, call me stubborn, I just they weren't part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I didn't watch it. Well, then they it was revealed that, oh, now it is. Now, they brought in Charlie Cox in Spider-Man No Way Home, and the Punisher is going to be in the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day. So I was like, oh, now I have to watch it. And that Netflix Daredevil series is awesome. It's so fucking awesome. And by the way, so is that uh, Netflix Punisher series. Oh my god. Oh my god. Like that's yeah, and I don't know what this says about me, but I'm a big Punisher fan. You know, and I loved both. But anyway, so the Netflix Daredevil series, I loved it. It's great. It's awesome. All good things. Sadly, I have not gotten around to watching uh, Daredevil Born Again. Um, I've heard mixed things, which is fine. You know, uh, that's not going to sway my decision to watch it. Um, but I need to watch it. So there has been news regarding uh, the continuation of the Daredevil Born Again Disney Plus series. Um, so this was now, to be fair, I want to preface this by saying this article was published 2 months ago. This article is on Joe Blow, published by Steve Saig. And this article says, after much speculation and doubt, it appears that Daredevil Born Again Season 3 is being produced at Marvel Studios for Disney Plus. The confirmation hails from IGN, where Marvel head of TV streaming animation Brad Winderbaum said the project is getting a green light. Um, so, and Kristen Ritter came back as Jessica Jones for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. I know that much. So, Season 3 of Daredevil Born Again got the green light, and they start shooting next year. Sometime in 2026, which is great. So, uh, I'm excited. I'm thrilled that we're getting more Daredevil Born Again. I'm glad that it's lasted this long. Like I'm in some in most cases, I would say, I'm picky about TV and streaming, newer TV and streaming shows. Like if I hear about a show that I might be interested in watching, I I usually wait to see to I usually wait to watch it because I don't want to invest my time in a show that I'm interested in and then have it get canceled after one season. Like I'm just that's just gonna piss me off. Like I just wasted my fucking time watching one season of a great show. When it comes to newer TV and streaming, I usually wait uh, till it's lasted at least 3 seasons to watch it. And I know that sounds weird, but you know I'm 41, man. Like I don't want to waste my time on anything. You know, again, there are exceptions to I personally I have exceptions to that rule, but for the most case, that's how I operate. Um, so, and that's not the case with Daredevil, Born Again. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I'm thrilled that I'm glad that it's lasting. I'm glad that it's going to get a third season and it's not going to end after season two. I'm happy about that. I need to watch the show. I've heard mixed things, but Charlie Cox is great as Matt Murdock as Daredevil, and Vincent D'Onofrio. Look, for it for me, I uh, I was actually a big fan of the Michael Clark Duncan version of Kingpin. Um, like he was, I mean, I and I love that movie, to be honest with you. Um, but just physically speaking, at that time, Michael Clark Duncan was literally the only person on the planet who could physically play that part. But I'll tell you what, Vincent D'Onofrio is Kingpin. He's great. He's awesome. Um, and I love what he brings to the role in every way. So I'm thrilled that we're getting a third season. I need to watch the first two of Daredevil Born Again. But jump in the comment section and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Daredevil Born Again Season 3, officially greenlit. Okay, so moving on here. This next bit of news, speaking of reuniting cast members, this next bit of news is regarding an upcoming holiday comedy. This article is on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro. And this article says Oscar winners Octavia Spencer and Jessica Chastain are coming back together after starring in 2011's The Help with the comedy Deck the Yalls. The duo will star alongside Wanda Sykes from a script by Tracy Oliver and Stephanie Williams. Let's see here. This article does go on to say Deck the Yalls follows Rachel Stein, played by Jessica Chastain, a savvy New York baker who can roll with anything until she falls for Beau, a younger Southern gentleman, and heads to Charleston to spend Christmas with his family. But overprotective matriarch Gladys Gibbs, played by Octavia Spencer, is a true steel magnolia whose massive celebrity chef persona will take all of Rachel's bless her heart best to survive. The pick, which is set in Charleston, South Carolina, will film next year. This sounds great. This sounds like it could be hilarious. It does sound kind of like your typical holiday comedy in a way. Um, you know, going to meet the family and overprotective family members and stuff like that. It does, but I think with talent like Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer, this could be one of those. It could bring something refreshing to the holiday comedy. Excuse me, just a second. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So again, I think with two women who are as talented as Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer, I think they could bring something refreshing to this movie. Octavia Spencer, I've talked about this before, is one of my favorite actresses right now. And actually, she has been for quite a while. Jessica Chastain, again, speaking of people I was late to the party to, I didn't really, I fully admit this. After Zero Dark 30 came out, and I watched that movie a couple years after it was released. Sometimes I'm a bit of a hypocrite because Jessica Chastain was someone that after Zero Dark 30 came out, everybody um, uh, everybody was talking about her. Which, rightfully so, but at the same time, for me, and this is why I'm hypocritical, is because it's like, oh my god, will people just shut up about Jessica Chastain? But then I saw why they were talking about her, and it's because she's great. And I freely admit this. I had watched her in interviews, and she has a very um, kind of interesting, unfiltered to a point, kind of personality. Um, I don't think she minds about. I don't think she minds talking about things in interviews that other people might have a problem with. That's just my perception. So it took me a little bit to uh, kind of like, oh, you're a different kind of actress than I've seen. You conduct yourself differently than I've witnessed other actresses conduct themselves. Not in a bad way, just different. And I, as a fan of every aspect of the film industry, watching interviews with actors or directors, as a fan, like, oh, I have to get used to watching her because of certain things. I have to. She's different, not in a bad way, just different. And I excuse me. I gradually warmed up to her, and she's great. I mean, she's wonderful. She was great in Interstellar. Um, she was obviously great in The Help and Zero Dark 30, and you know, she's been in a lot of um, different kinds of movies. She was in this horror movie called Mama, which I believe was um, hold on. I want to make sure I get this right. Uh, yeah. So um, it was this. She was in this horror movie called Mama, which was directed by Andy Muschietti, who went on to direct the um, the It film series, the 2017 movie and its sequel, which are both so good. Oh my god. And then he did the Flash movie with Ezra Miller, which was decent. It was decent. But Andy Muschietti directed Mama. And oh my god, that movie is so um it's how do I want to put this? It's a decent movie. It's a decent movie. The material in the movie is is twisted. Is so twisted. It's just that it wasn't, I don't feel it was executed. It was fine. It was fine. The material is better than the outcome. Like I think they could have told a better. The material so twisted they could have fully adapt. They could have fully embraced the twistedness of the material, but they, for whatever reason, they didn't, and it's fine. The movie's decent, but I think they could have leaned into the twisted nature of the movie. Anyway, so Jessica Chastain is in that movie. She is phenomenal in that movie. Oh my god. So anyway, and obviously she was great in The Help with Octavia Spencer. And it's, again, this sounds like your typical holiday comedy, holiday family comedy, but hopefully with the talent like Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer, they'll elevate it, and it'll be. I mean, let's be honest, it'll be great to see them reunite. And so yeah, so this sounds. I hope this is. I hope this is good. I hope it's because I'm getting kind of typical holiday comedy vibes from reading the synopsis. Hopefully it's better than that, and hopefully it elevate. Hopefully Jessica Chastain and Octavia Spencer are able to elevate the material, so that it's better than your typical holiday comedy fluff. Um, but we'll see. It has, as far as I'm concerned, it has two of my favorite actresses in it, so which makes me automatically interested in it. So we'll see. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. So, um, this next bit of news. So in recent episodes, um, I've been talking about this movie called Sweetsick with Cate Blanchett, and it's about this woman played by Cate Blanchett who has this ability to see what others most intimately need, often at great personal cost. Um, and there's been some casting news regarding that movie. This article is on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro. And this article says Alice Birch's directorial debut, Sweetsick, starring Cate Blanchett at Searchlight Pictures, has added alien Romulus actor Spike Fearn to its cast. Now, this is interesting because, hold on, I always want to make sure I'm giving you guys the right information. Um, so, Spike Fearn uh, was in Alien Romulus. Now, um, I know a lot of people. Look, all I can say is I love Alien Romulus. And I think, hold on, I want to make sure. Um, I think Spike Fearn was the character. If I he's great in Alien Romulus. I mean, it was that's more. It was an ensemble piece. It was an ensemble movie, but he's great. I loved Alien Romulus. I I went with a couple of people who didn't really like it, and I know a lot of people. I know a few people who don't really like that movie, for whatever. Which is fine. You know, art is subjective. You know, just because I love something doesn't mean you will. Um, I know a few people who Alien Romulus didn't really work for them for many reasons. All I can say is those reasons worked for me. I think Alien Romulus is the third best in the franchise. I fucking loved it. There's a shot um, in Alien Romulus where the face huggers burst through the glass and attack a character, and I'm just sitting there going, "Yes, this is awesome." So anyway, Spike Fearn was in Alien Romulus. There's something in the water. You know, what do you mean there's something? I don't know. There's just something in the fucking water. You know, Spike Fearn was great. Anyway, so Spike, this is interesting because this is great to see because Spike Fearn is a young actor and getting to work with uh, a talent who is as an actress who is as talented as Cate Blanchett and who has been around for as long as Cate Blanchett has. You know, sh- um, it's going to be great to be in a movie with her because I mean, obviously, depending on the quality of the movie, it'll help elevate your status as a young actor, which is always great. And all I can say is, um, I hope I hope this movie is really really good. And I always it's always nice to see young actors succeed, um, because that means that they'll have a long career, um, and hopefully that'll be the case with Sweetsick. Being in a movie that is produced and starring Cate Blanchett, you know, it's gonna last. And Spike Fearn again. He was so good at Alien Romulus, um, and it'll be great to see what he brings to the table. Like I, I would love to be able to ask him, like, is it intimidating, working with Cate Blanchett? you know, um, but the point I'm trying to make is that being in a movie with Cate Blanchett, first you have a movie like Alien Romulus, which is a movie in a long established franchise, and then you do this completely different kind of movie with an actress the caliber of a Cate Blanchett. And both movies, Alien Romulus, I thought was great. If Sweet Sick is great, that'll obviously continue to elevate Spike Fearn's status as an actor, and I'd love to see that. That's the point I'm trying to make. So, uh, jump in the comment section. Let me know what your and obviously the more casting news again. The more casting news regarding a movie means they're going to be filming soon, if not already. So that's good news. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Spike Fearn joining Sweetsick. So this next bit of news I am over the moon about. Okay, so I previously mentioned this episode that, and it's probably going to end up being one of my favorite movies of the year, was the horror movie that Zach Creggers directed called Weapons. Oh my god, that movie is so, again, it's a horror movie, but it's a very grounded horror movie. It's a supernatural horror movie that's grounded in its own reality, and I loved it. And there's a character in the movie called Aunt Gladys, and when you find out what her character, what Aunt Gladys, when you find out what her character is all about, and what her character, the motivations and everything, I'm just sitting there going, holy shit. Like, what? What? Like, oh my fucking god. Okay? And that, it just blew my mind. And Amy Madigan, who played Aunt Gladys, all the little, all the things that she brought to the character as an actress creatively, I was blown away. So one of the things about, there's a mystery about Aunt Gladys, the Aunt Gladys character. There's a certain mystery surrounding her. And how do I want to say it? Sometimes when it comes to that, sometimes when there's a certain mystery surrounding a character, sometimes you want to know the mystery, sometimes you don't want to know. Sometimes you don't need to know. Sometimes it's not necessary, but it's kind of, sometimes it's kind of fun not knowing. But at the same time, from a creative standpoint, you think to yourself, God, it would be fun if they did something with that mysterious aspect of that character. I'm not going to reveal what it is if you haven't seen it, but oh my god. So, it's kind of like, I'm maybe I'm not explaining it well enough, but like sometimes you don't need I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes you don't need, when it comes to how characters are presented, specifically in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. When it comes to how characters are presented, sometimes you want to know why they are that way. And like with Darth Vader, everybody, sometimes you want to know what happened to make them this way, and sometimes you don't need to know. And I look, strictly speaking, as an audience member / wannabe amateur filmmaker, I'm kind of indifferent about it. As an as an audience member, if the filmmaker decides to explore that character more, fine, go with it. As an amateur filmmaker, wannabe amateur filmmaker, I feel like that's my choice. But anyway, I don't know if I'm explaining it properly. So this character of Aunt Gladys, there's a mystery of there's a mystery surrounding her character. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But she's but it's not revealed in Weapons in the movie. She's presented she's presented as who she is, matter of factly. You know, like this is who she is. You know, here's from a writing standpoint, she's presented as this. Here's who the character is. This is all I'm going to say about it. Let's move on. Like, there's nothing from a writing standpoint. What you need to know about the Aunt Gladys character is presented matter of factly in the movie, and you don't need to know anymore. Okay, and it's perfectly and it works. It works. So, Zach Cregger, who directed Weapons, however, has confirmed something regarding the Aunt Gladys character. This article is on CBR, published by Charlene Badazzi. I can't tell if that's an I or an L. Charlene Badazzi. Zach Cregger, the mastermind behind Weapons, has officially confirmed a follow-up. The prequel will follow Aunt Gladys, the wickedly talented, I'm not going to say what it is, character, the wickedly talented character played by Amy Madigan, who made you check under your bed twice and maybe rethink your life choices. Speaking to Fangoria, Zach Cregger confirmed the prequel with unbridled enthusiasm. It is real, and I've been talking to Warner Brothers about it, he said. There's a story, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's not bullshit, meaning it's not just rumors. Like, this is real. According to the filmmaker, an Aunt Gladys origin story was in the works long before the flagship movie even hit theaters. He says, I was ready. I had it kind of in my pocket before the movie came out. Now that's the key, at least for me. Like, Zach Cregger clearly had an Aunt Gladys origin story ready to go prior to the release of Weapons. This isn't a case of this movie came out. This isn't a case of, let's now that this movie is successful and everybody's talking about the Aunt Gladys character, I want to write a prequel. This seems like Zach Cregger has had all the details about the Aunt Gladys character ready to go. He already had a backstory about Aunt Gladys prior to the release of Weapons, but it was ready but he just decided not to explore it yet. This isn't a case of creating it after the success of the movie and the fact that everybody's talking about that character. This is a case of, I know what the backstory is regarding her character. I already know. It's not like he's making it up now. He already, that's what excites me, is that, I don't know if I'm explaining it well, I'm sorry, but That's what excites me, is that he knew Aunt Gladys's backstory before the movie Weapons was released, not after. It's not like the movie Weapons was released and to this enormous success, and then he said, "Oh, everybody seems to respond to this Aunt Gladys character. Let me write a backstory about it. It'd be fun to write a backstory." No, that was he already wrote that. Okay, now I kind of want to see it, because if it was the other way, if Weapons came out and had this enormous success and everybody was talking about Aunt Gladys, and he wrote the prequel because of the movie's success, or because people are talking about Aunt Gladys, that would be a little different. I would be like, really? Like, no, let's just like leave it alone, you know? But what he's saying is that no, it's not bullshit. Like, that backstory, I had it ready before the movie came out. And I'm like, oh, that means you've already, that means, as far like from a creative standpoint, you created this character from the ground up, from the very beginning, you know. And I'm like, that is interesting, because I'm the kind of person, again, as an audience member, the character of Aunt Gladys is presented matter of factly. Aunt Gladys appears in the movie. This is who she is. This is what she's up to. Holy shit. There's a mystery behind the character. And it's presented in a way that, like, you don't necessarily need or want to know. But as an audience member, I personally am like, if he decides to tell a movie about her backstory, fine. If not, I'm fine with that too. And it, but the key for me is he had her backstory planned out before the movie Weapons was released. That to me is key. He's already got the setup. He knows what to do with it. He knows all about it. It ain't BS. Like, he knows everything. That to me is brilliant. And now that I know that, and not now that I know that he's not planning this prequel after the success of Weapons. Like, now that I know that he built this character from the ground up, from the very beginning, now I kind of want to see this origin story, because that character is so. And again, it's just one of these things where Aunt Gladys, the mystery surrounding her, and it's completely batshit crazy, because the movie is grounded in its own reality. Like, it's a little like sometimes, and I don't mean this to sound a negative way, but sometimes in supernatural horror movies, when it come there are sometimes when it comes to supernatural horror movies, you watch things that you know could never happen in real life. With Weapons, it's different, because there could be, and possibly are, characters, there could be and possibly are people like Aunt Gladys in this world. That's all I'm saying. So to explore that, especially again, especially since he's built this character from the ground up from the very beginning, before this movie even came out. That gets me excited. And I would take your time with it. Don't cock it up. Because if you mess it up, you will ruin this character. And it doesn't sound like he's gonna mess it up. It sounds like he's got it planned. But oh my god, guys, watch Weapons. Holy shit. This sounds like this could be his next movie, Zach Creggers' next movie after his Resident Evil movie. Which I would be kind of two minds about. Um, I because, and I don't want to go too off the rails here, but Zach Cregger is obviously someone who has established himself in the horror genre. I would like to see him start doing more original stuff in the horror genre and not going back to um, stuff that he's explored before. It doesn't sound like he's doing that, but um, it sounds like this could be his next thing after his Resident Evil movie. Which, oh my god. But anyway, so I hope I don't. I hope I didn't bore everybody with my enthusiasm about this. So jump in the comment section, guys. If you saw Weapons, what did you think of it? Did you love it as much as I did? Did you hate it? What did you think of Aunt Gladys? Let me know. Okay, couple more things today. So, there has been some casting news regarding the upcoming fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day. And it doesn't sound like this casting news is going to... Well, let me just read this here. So, this article is on Joe Blow, published by Steve Saig. And a little bit down here, it says, according to Deadline, Black Lightning actor Marvin Jones III is reprising his role as Tombstone for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Marvin Jones III voiced the larger-than-life gangster for Sony's Oscar-winning animated feature Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and is returning for the upcoming threequel, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. Yeah, so he voiced Tombstone in the animated movies, and now he's playing Tombstone in the live action. Let's see. So, for those who don't know, Tombstone is a gangster character in the Spider-Man universe, Spider-Man comics, who was created by Jerry Conway and Jerry Conway was the writer, and Alex Saviuk was the artist. This article says he's one of New York's most menacing crime bosses and a recurring villain in Spider-Man-focused comic books. Tombstone is an African-American albino with filed teeth and near indestructible skin. He made his comic debut in Web of Spider-Man number 36 in March 1988. Now, it says that Tombstone is an African-American albino. There's nothing... And I bring this up because there's bound to be people that complain about this. There's nothing about his character that requires him to be African American. Because Marvin Jones III, I don't know if you know this, but he's white. and again, I bring this up because I know people are going to complain. Excuse me just a second. Let me get out a cough drop. Sorry about this, folks. But there's nothing about Tombstone that requires him to be black. Obviously, it would be more comic accurate if he was, but it is what it is. Now, I did bring up this page here about the character of Tombstone. So he has this. For those who don't know, he's this like the previous article says. Um, he is a gangster character, and it doesn't sound, at least from the article, it doesn't sound like Tombstone is going to be the main villain of this fourth Spider-Man movie. It sounds like he's going to be a henchman, which he should be. Tombstone is not a top tier. I don't think. I mean, he's a cool character. I love the character of Tombstone. But in my mind, he's not a top tier Spider-Man villain. He's a henchman. He's a henchman type character. So I did find this page for those who aren't familiar with the character of Tombstone. Let's see. Tombstone has his body was exposed to the chemical Diox 3, which granted him all of his superhuman attributes. Superhuman strength. Tombstone possesses sufficient strength enabling him to lift about 6 tons. Superhuman reflexes, superhuman durability. Tombstone's body is highly resistant to physical injury. He is capable of withstanding high caliber bullets, great impact force, and temperatures as hot as 1200 degrees Fahrenheit and as low as negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit without sustaining injury. He is also somewhat insulated from electricity. By his own account, his skin is as hard as diamonds, although his eyes aren't as durable. Tombstone's muscles. Superhuman stamina. Tombstone's muscles produce less fatigue toxins than the musculature of an ordinary human. He can exert himself at peak capacity for several hours before fatigue begins to affect him. So, in short, there's a reason why his name is Tombstone. It is a fitting name. I love the character of Tombstone. I love, even though I wouldn't consider Tombstone a top tier Spider-Man villain, but he still poses a legitimate threat. And Spider-Man always it's Spider-Man always a fight with Tombstone is never easy for Spider-Man, and I love that, because without conflict there's no story, and I love the character of Tombstone. Someone who is except for his eyes virtually indestructible. I don't know why I love that character so much. It's just his mutation and the top it's just a cool character, cool gangster character. So Tombstone is going to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day. So jump in the comment section and let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Marvin Jones III doing a live-action version of Tombstone. So in other Spider-Man news, this is rather unfortunate. Okay, let me preface this by saying I am a huge, huge fan of the Spider-Man animated Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse. Fucking love those movies. I don't know. I can tell you this. I was not expecting specifically Into the Spider-Verse, which was the first one. I didn't expect it to be as great as it was. That movie's fucking awesome. It's like watching a comic book. The animation style is like watching a comic book. it's great. Across the Spider-Verse, I would say it's just as good. Um, it, I don't necessarily need a sequel. Sequels in general. I don't necessarily need sequels to be better than the original. Just make it a good movie. Um, and I would say Across the Spider-Verse, uh, in generally speaking, is as good as the first one. Now, I am not fully up on the production of um, Beyond the Spider Verse, obviously, because I'm not working on that movie. But I mean, like, I haven't been keeping up with the production status of that film. Um, all I know is that apparently there have been numerous production issues, and that it's I know that questions have been raised about whether the movie's even going to be released. Um, like, when are we going to get this damn movie? I know it's been delayed a couple times, and according to this article, it has been delayed again. Um, so this article is on Deadline, published by Anthony D'Alessandro. Now, this article gives numerous updates because it refreshes every so often with filming updates regarding the movie. So I'm just going to read the most recent update. So, um, the most recent update is that Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse is has been delayed to June 18th of 2027. Now that means that it's going to be, because of that, there was this Disney Pixar movie called Gato. So now, because Beyond the Spider-Verse is coming June 18th, 2027, Beyond the Spider-Verse and Gato are going to be released on the same weekend. Now, what's interesting is that June 18th, 2027, that's also, like, it was supposed to be released a week later. So it's actually moved up a week, which is good news. Considering, and again, I'm not fully up on it, but I get, apparently there have been numerous production issues and problems, not necessarily problems, but issues with getting the animation done correctly and numerous delays. So it's good that we have a solid release date now of June 18th, 2027. As far as I'm concerned, I can't fucking wait. I I can't believe how good those movies are. And you know, I don't have much to say about the delay of the release other than, like, I'm glad that it's moved up a week, and I'm glad that we're still getting the movie, and I'm glad that we now have a solid release date. I just want to take a second. I have never I love animation. I've never subscribed to the theory. I've never when people say animation is for kids, I'm like, fuck off. You know, animation is awesome. Um, I will say, and this has less to do with the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movies, and more about animation in general. I have a thing regarding animation. Like, I can't draw very well, right? I mean, I took some uh, animation classes, like learning how to draw when I was in film school. So I learned how to draw people, and uh, the I know about the horizon line, and I knew how to you know I learned how to how to I improved my drawing skills when I was in film school, I guess you could say. I vastly improved from what they were. But I still, in my mind, I still can't draw very well. So if I watch something animated, whether it's a movie or a TV show, because I can't draw very well. If I watch something animated and I go, "Oh, I can draw better than that," I just can't get into it. Like there are certain animated TV shows, um, like Rick and Morty or South Park. Like, because of the style of animation, I'm just like, well, I could draw better than that. I just can't. I can't get into. You know, it's just you know I can't get into it because, and maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is more about the story and not the animation. But I just can't get into animation when I look at something and go, I could do better than that. But I just wanted to talk about a little bit about animation in general and how I feel. Like I'm in my early 40s. I'm 41, and I love animation. Some of my favorite shows when I was a kid were animation, and I still love those shows. And my God, the animation in these Spider Verse movies is so it's breathtaking. It really is breathtaking. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm again going back to Beyond the Spider Verse. I'm glad that we have a solid release date. Hopefully, it doesn't get delayed, and hopefully, the movie doesn't experience any more production issues. Okay, one last bit of news here. Um, so, uh, speaking of weapons, the movie Weapons, it doesn't sound like Josh Brolin is going to slow down anytime soon. Nor should he, because he's immensely talented. There's an announcement here regarding an upcoming movie that he will be in. This article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman and Anthony D'Alessandro. This article says Oscar nominee Josh Brolin, who is coming off box office smash Weapons, has come on board to headline the action comedy Mister from Bright White Light and John Wick outfit Thunder Road. This article goes on to say, as we told you during Cannes, that's the Cannes Film Festival, the film will mark the directorial debut of well-known second unit and action director Wade Eastwood, whose credits include Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Mission Impossible: Fallout, and Jumanji: The Next Level. Mister follows a man played by Josh Brolin, who wakes up in a strange house covered in blood and comes to realize his true identity while fighting off contract killers from his past, including everyone from his exes to his best friend. To get out, he teams up with his estranged daughter, who also has ended up in the family business, but they will need to repair their relationship in order to survive. That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome, and I'll tell you why it sounds awesome. um, because it sounds like Memento meets John Wick. That's what it is. and that sounds incredible. I would love to see. Uh, that sounds awesome. Um, and having to repair his relationship with his daughter along the way. Um, that sounds like there's going to be, again. This sounds like uh, amidst all this crazy action, there's going to be a very well told character based father daughter relationship being mended. And that sounds. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I am a little concerned that it's going to be the directorial debut of Wade Eastwood. I'm concerned. I always worry about as a as a wannabe amateur filmmaker myself. I always worry about first time directors because if your first movie as a director doesn't go well, your career could go down the toilet pretty quick. Seen it happen the other way too. Um, I just hope it's good. Now, like this article points out, uh, he was a second unit and action director Wade Eastwood who did second unit on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Mission Impossible: Fallout, and Jumanji: The Next Level. Now, little bit of uh, insider film talk here. For those who don't know what second unit is, second unit is basically is mostly action sequences, um, as opposed to exposition. Like, think of the opening to a James Bond movie. That is second unit. That is what they call second unit or action or second unit action directing. You have a different director. You have a different, not a different director, but well, a different boss on shooting that kind of sequence than you would shooting an exposition scene, right? So that's what this article means by second unit and action director. So Wade Eastwood did second unit for the last couple of Mission Impossibles and Jumanji: The Next Level. So, in other words, he's an incredible second unit director. um, um, so we'll see. I am, and again, and I know I've said this before. I love Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin, I love him as an actor and I love him as a person. He is so. I worked on season 1 of, oh God, now it's gonna kill me. What was the series that he did on Prime, the Amazon streaming service? Why I am just a mess today. Josh Brolin, Western, Outer Range. Yeah, I'm not. I apologize. I'm a complete mess. I worked on season 1 of Outer Range. That, in terms of experiences that I've had working on film sets, working on Outer Range was the best. Mostly because Josh Brolin is awesome. Josh Brolin is so cool. He's very, very, very aware that without people paying money to see his stuff, he would be nothing. He's incredibly humble. And also, he doesn't bullshit people. Like I've watched interviews with him, and he is refreshingly honest on. I forget what it was, but he was talking. He was talking about. He was asked because he's done so many movies, and he was asked how soon does he know that a movie he's on, how soon do you know, how soon does he know whether or not it's going to be good? And he's like, oh, I know pretty quick, you know. And it and he was talking about Jonah Hex, which you know, fair. Jonah Hex is a pile of dog shit. Um, but he's so refreshingly honest. He's so uh, just very down to earth, very humble. Um, very, he's a very, he's a very decent person in a world where people aren't. And in an industry, well, not, I wouldn't say in the industry, but let's face it, we live in a world now where people just aren't nice anymore. And, or we just, he's a very respectful person. And I love him for that, and obviously I love him as an actor. Um, and for him to be in a movie like this, again, this sounds very like you wake up and you don't know what's happening, and you have to put your life back together and repair your relationship with your estranged daughter, while also fighting off everybody who's coming after you, and you don't know why they're coming after you, but you have to do all this crazy shit. I love this. Again, this sounds like Memento meets John Wick. This sounds awesome. I love it. Love Josh Brolin. Bring it on. Okay, well, thank you for sticking with me today. I know it probably wasn't easy. I apologize if I rambled or went off the rails too much. I am kind of I'm not trying to make any excuses, but I'm a little under the weather today. So I may or may not have been all I may or may not have been all there during the show today. So I apologize if I went off too much off topic. But I hope you enjoyed the show. I don't know if I'll be back to do another one later today. Maybe not. I may rest. But I will definitely do another one. I might do another one. What's today? Sunday? I might do another one on Tuesday. If I don't do, I can guarantee you I will do another one Tuesday. I don't know if I will do another one today, but I will do at least one on Tuesday. So, I apologize if I went off the rails too much. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the show today and continue to enjoy it, I should say. If you have any questions, if you want me to talk about anything specific, you can email me or just leave a comment in the comment section. Doesn't matter to me. Or if you feel that my thoughts are somewhat misguided, feel free to call me out on it. I will respond in a very respectful way, I promise. I mean, seriously, you know, I've talked to people who, like, I express my opinion about something and they respond by making negative comments about my mother. Which I'm like, really? You can't even have a conversation about this? you know, I mentioned that I enjoy this movie, and they're like, "Oh, fuck you," you know, and I'm just like, really, we can't have a civil conversation about opinions anymore. But anyway, so but I will be back on Tuesday. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show, and as always, I will see you at the movies.